Not feeling the love this Valentine's Day, but you never thought your family tree could be messing up your love life. Turns out we don't just inherit our physical DNA. Neuroscience shows we also inherit thought patterns, feelings, and behaviors called emotional DNA. Our next guest is Judy Wilkins Smith, author of Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint. Judy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Janelle. Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
It's great to have you. And you know, people are really fascinated with ancestry and do all kinds of research. Can we do the same kind of research on our family trees for emotional DNA?
Absolutely. And this is the lovely thing. As you said, Ancestry.com or those kinds of genealogy sites have over 100 million family trees. That tells us that people are super interested in where they came from, but they don't always think about how that affects them. So when we go looking at our family trees and we look at the events and the origins of our ancestors, we begin to find out that these events created decisions and, as you said, thoughts, feelings, actions, patterns, and these echo down through the generations. And this includes in your relationships. So yeah, it absolutely can be affecting who you are now.
Right, and there's actual scientific evidence of this, correct?
Yes, there is. Epigenetics is another branch that we like to refer to often. And there are studies like the Great Dutch Hunger Winter and even studies on 9/11 that show how these events created an impact on the system or an imprint that then became the blueprint for generations of the way we react, the way we relate, all of those sorts of things.
And then so relationships become important in this. How does our emotional DNA transfer into the relationships we have?
Okay, so let's say, for example, grandfather meets the love of his life. I mean, he is smitten. 2 weeks later, he's proposed. 3 months later, they're at the altar, or he's at the altar. She's bailed. And that just really hits him. And what does he say? Don't ever trust love at first sight. It's bad. It doesn't last. And he really acts as though he's been terribly hurt. That transfers to dad, who goes, I've married the love of my life, but you know what? I can't keep her because love at first sight doesn't work. So he divorces her. And now it comes to you and you're sitting there going, I am so in love, but this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And so we have generations of love at first sight is not allowed. It's a bad thing. And this becomes a pattern.
Yeah, and so once we recognize those patterns, if they're not good for us, how do we break them is the big question, I guess.
Of course. So what you look at is you look at how is it affecting me? How's it affected the generation? So in this situation, you can't love the first one. But you really want to, because this one looks pretty promising. It's really recognizing that I've inherited a piece of that emotional DNA that no longer serves me. It's okay for me to have love at first sight. It's okay for me to do it differently. And when I can hear that and tell it to myself and believe it and know it, this becomes your new emotional DNA. So it's all about what we tell ourselves and believe that starts to shape the way things are.
Okay. Now, you're a constellations expert. Can you explain what that is exactly?
Sure. So a constellation is a little bit exactly like you'd see in the sky. Every star has its precise place, and that gives it its identity and the way that it will act and interact. And we are the same. So what we do is we do a breakthrough approach where you set up either post-it notes or even live representatives to show the relationship of each one to the other. And you can then very quickly begin to see these are more distant, these are close. And using that and this questioning, you can then see how the relationships are affecting you and to whom you are loyal. In other words, who you aligned with in your relationship patterns.
Wow. Well, very fascinating stuff, Judy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was lovely to be with you.
Okay, and we're going to put some information on your screen to learn more about your emotional DNA. You can visit the website at judywilkins-smith.com.